Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're taking a look at a brand new Pokemon in the world of Pokemon Go, CERULEDGE. CERULEDGE evolves from Charcadet, which can hatch from 2k, 5k, or 10k eggs. Normally, I like to feature Pokemon on the day they released, but the hatch rates for this thing were absolutely awful, so I wasn't able to get a second one until today. Now, CERULEDGE has a pretty awesome moveset. The moveset is Incinerate, Flame Charge, and Shadow Ball, so the same moveset as Chandelure, and it shares Chandelure's Fire Ghost typing as well. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and let's take a look at some practice Ultra League battles featuring CERULEDGE. Hopping to the first match, picking up a bit of an uncomfortable lead, Poliwrath versus Annihilape. Annihilape, I could technically switch out of here, but they would be able to make an Ice Punch into my Gliscor before I can make an Earthquake, so I figure I may as well stay in here and play this out. They go for the Shadow Ball, I go for the Scald. The Scald does get the debuff, opponent not going to be able to farm down now, so they're going to be forced to go for the Ice Punch on charge attack priority. And I'm going to use this as an opportunity to hopefully get a massive energy head start on CERULEDGE. In comes CERULEDGE, these Incinerates chunking through the Annihilape. Opponent is going to switch out into a Shadow Ampharos. I bank a ton of energy on CERULEDGE and send in the Shadow Gliscor. The thing I have to keep in mind is my opponent can potentially make it to a Shadow Ball on that Annihilape later in the game. I'm down on energy in the Gliscor vs Ampharos matchup. Two Brutal Swings will come very close to knocking out. I make it to the Earthquake, guaranteeing a KO or a shield. Opponent lets it go, down goes the Ampharos. They're really low on the Annihilape, so they should be sending in the third here, and it's Skeledirge. I am just able to make a last-second Night Slash, as my opponent is not quite able to get the farm down. Back in comes the CERULEDGE. I build up to 100 energy, and I win CMP over that Skeledirge. Flame Charge gets the shield. It is a resisted move, but at this point, honestly, they're low enough that I can probably just go straight Flame Charge and be okay here. I continue to farm up with the CERULEDGE, going for a boosted Flame Charge. Opponent is going to have to respect this with a shield, and they do. They have enough for the Shadow Ball. The thing I have to keep in mind is I don't want them to potentially get a snipe with the Annihilape. They send in the Annihilape, and I fire off the Flame Charge right away. I'm now 3 stages boosted. In comes the Skeledirge. Look at the Incinerates go, farming down the Skeledirge and taking the win. We see the Dream Lead in the next match, Poliwrath versus Obstagoon. Opponent save switches into Shadow Dragonite, and I respond with the Poliwrath. Opponent chooses not to throw their energy, which is a bit of a surprise. Oftentimes in this matchup, Dragonite wants to throw first, so that way they can get some damage off before they get debuffed. But they choose to overfarm, and that works out great for me, as now anything they throw into the Gliscor is going to be debuffed. I'll fire off the Night Slash. Night Slash not going to be enough to KO here, but it will put them into potential farm down range. They go for the Dragon Claw. This will get the Gliscor low, but it will not be enough to knock out. So I can hold on here, and then I'm going to let myself get slightly lower as Dragonite gets farmed down. They send back in the Obstagoon. I'm only able to make it to a Night Slash, but honestly, even a Night Slash will add up. I send in the Poliwrath. I should have waited my timer there. In comes the Cresselia. My timer's up. They go for the Grass Knot, but a Grass Knot does not knock out here. So I'm perfectly fine with letting this through, and now in comes CERULEDGE. CERULEDGE is very attack weighted. Although in comparison to something like Chandelure, Chandelure does have about 16 more attack overall than the CERULEDGE. So Chandelure is even more attack weighted, but CERULEDGE does have quite a bit more bulk, as it is a lot more HP than the Chandelure. Unfortunately, Cresselia is barely able to hang on and make it to another future site, so I will commit a shield. Back in comes the Obstagoon. CERULEDGE not boosted yet, but that's about to change. Flame Charge is going to connect. CERULEDGE continuing to farm. Obstagoon will fire off the Night Slash. Is this going to be enough to KO? It is not, and that's where a little bit of extra bulk on the CERULEDGE can come in handy at certain moments. Like, you don't have the finishing power of something like a Chandelure, but you do have the ability to take hits slightly better than the Candle. I'm able to combo play with the Scald from the Poliwrath. It was a pretty hard counter game, but we're able to take the win. Speaking of hard counters, oh, very nice lead. Poliwrath into the Empoleon. Opponent safe switches into the Shadow Dragonite. Dragonite wants that damage before they're debuffed, so they will fire off the Dragon Claw. I'm going to tank that damage, and then I fire off the Icy Wind. The Icy Wind is double super effective. They're forced to shield. I'm going to stay in here with the Poliwrath, as I know they're unable to farm me down. They're forced to throw energy, so I'm just going to let this through. and now I can send in the Gliscor. Gliscor farming up energy. I debated throwing as soon as I got there, but I decided instead I would rather go for energy on the Gliscor. So I'm just going to farm up to the back-to-back Night Slashes, as this should hopefully allow me to outpace the Empoleon. As Empoleon switch right away, so they don't have any energy. They can send in the Empoleon. I'm really hoping they shield this Earthquake. Up 2 shields to 0, CERULEDGE should do extremely well. Earthquake connects in the back. It's Goodra, and this is not great. CERULEDGE does struggle quite a bit against dragons, the opponent having something with a water subtyping and then 2 dragons. CERULEDGE doesn't really have anywhere to go against teams like these. I fire off the Shadow Ball. Let's see this damage. Oh, that does quite a bit of damage though. And now I'm going to go for the Flame Charge, boosting up my attack and grabbing the final shield. If I can register this Incinerate, oh, it's a win, but I can't. Goodra farms down and we lose a heartbreakingly close game. Tough lead in the next match, Poliwrath versus Ampharos. This team is ABA weak to Ampharos, so I'm going to choose to stay in here. You wouldn't necessarily think of Skeledirge as weak to Ampharos, but Ampharos is able to outpace, and man, you do not want to take brutal swings as a CERULEDGE. They're running Trailblaze. That does super effective damage and boosts up their attack. Opponent actually gets countered down. Somehow Poliwrath wins the zeros versus the Trailblaze Ampharos. But Poliwrath with energy is very tough for my backline. I decide to send in the Gliscor, as I should be able to tank an Icy Wind and make an Earthquake. Opponent sends in the Skeledirge, looking for the snipe, but the Incinerate does not KO. I'm able to hang on, fire off the Earthquake, grab the shield, and now we have the battle of the Fire Ghost types, CERULEDGE going up against the Skeledirge. Of course, Skeledirge at an energy advantage, but at a shield deficit. I'm going to farm up to 100 energy and go for the Shadow Ball. No baits here. I'm in an advantageous position. Opponent calls the bait. Back in comes the Poliwrath, and again, I'm just not going to bait. I'm going straight for the Shadow Ball, looking to apply pressure to my opponent. They end up no shielding, and that's just going to be game over. I can just let this go, as I know that I should barely be able to live a counter. The Scald will pick up the KO, but I can send in the Gliscor, wing attack down, and take the win. We see same leads in the next match, Poliwrath versus the Ampharos. This time I decide to switch out. I send in the Gliscor, which honestly I think is a worse play on my part, as realistically, throwing away my only good counter to Ampharos is going to make this game extremely difficult. My opponent will go for the Flame Charge, boosting up their attack. I'm going to throw 2 wing attacks and the Night Slash, making sure that I throw on good timing. Throwing on good timing versus Incinerate is extremely important, because if you let through a free Incinerate, odds are you're just giving your opponent an opportunity to win the game. So I really try and go for that good charge move timing when I can. This is awkward. I don't really want to take damage on anything. I decide to send in the CERULEDGE and just go for a 1 shield farm down, as that way I can leave with energy to threaten the Ampharos, which itself did leave with energy. In comes the Ampharos. I'm farming up and I'm firing off the Shadow Ball. I didn't see a sneak there, and there should have been a sneak. I'm not entirely sure what happened there, so I'm not sure where they're at now in terms of energy. Realistically, they should be 1 off, and they would be able to outpace, so I'm going to switch into the Poliwrath, and in the back, it's Pidgeot. Okay, this game does actually look winnable. The way that I win this game is by my opponent going for a Brave Bird, being able to Incinerate down with the CERULEDGE, and then winning charge attack priority. They go for the Brave Bird. It doesn't KO. I believe that's an undercharge on the Brave Bird, so now it's my turn to undercharge the Icy Wind. My opponent, if they fully farm down here, they can win. I had to try and force a Simul, but I'm unable to get there. Even with the Simul, I don't think I win. As CERULEDGE, it's slightly tankier than Chandelure, but not by much. The Brutal Swing is going to KO, and unfortunately, I do lose the game. Moving to the next match, Poliwrath sees another Obstagoon. What a beautiful day. Opponent save switches into the Skeledirge. I don't have an amazing response to a Skeledirge up energy. Even something like the Shadow Gliscor isn't a massive fan of dealing with an energy advantage on that Skeledirge, so I'm just going to stay in here with the Poliwrath. Poliwrath will go for the Scald. The Scald is going to connect and get the debuff. I throw 2, switch, and not only do I get the catch of the Disarming Voice, but I get the Incinerate through as well. That's big, because my opponent is now going to be unable to make it to any other moves. I'm expecting they're going to send back in the Obstagoon. The Obstagoon, in it comes, and I'm just going to start ramping up my attack with the CERULEDGE. Let's see what CERULEDGE can do. The opponent knows that they should not be shielding the first, as future flame charges will do more, so they do make the correct call. I'm shielding up the Night Slash, and I'm going for another flame charge. I'm now going to be 2 stages boosted. My opponent, if they want to preserve the Obstagoon, will have to commit the shield, and they do just that. They're trying to get rid of the CERULEDGE. CERULEDGE is going to be committing the shield. Is this Incinerate going to be enough to KO? It's going to be close. It does KO in the back. It's a Shadow Swampert, and this is genuinely a little bit tricky. I'm going to go for the Shadow Ball, grab the shield, switch into the Poliwrath, and go for the Icy Wind. The goal is, hopefully, to put myself in a range where a Hydro will not KO since they are debuffed. It's going to be close here. Let's see, do they try and go for the Hydro to KO, or do they full send the Quake? They do full send the Quake to guarantee the knockout. I'm going to send in the Gliscor. Even if this wasn't debuffed, I should barely live a Shadow Hydro, but since it is, I can definitely live the Shadow Hydro and make it to the Night Slash. And Night Slash is going to be enough to pick up the knockout, taking down Swampert. We see a Core Breaker on the lead in the next match, Poliwrath versus Giratina Altered. Giratina Altered is another Pokemon that does give this team a bit of trouble. Gliscor can beat it, but the Poliwrath does have a losing matchup, and of course CERULEDGE, unless CERULEDGE has a massive energy head start or a massive shield advantage, is going to get destroyed by it as well. I go for the Icy Wind, opponent is going to save switch into a Shadow Ampharos. Ampharos continues to farm. They're going to be able to make it to back-to-back Brutal Swings before I'm able to make it to an Earthquake, which basically means I'm going to lose all of my HP. So I have an interesting choice to make here. I do decide to let this through, but now this sets up the Giratina to be particularly annoying into the remainder of my team. The Earthquake is going to pick up the knockout. They send in Charizard. They have a Giratina and a Charizard, both of which are Core Breakers here. And I just really don't see a way forward. I have to try and get a shield call right. I shield the bait, and that's just game over. That's 100% just game over. This is now the Blast Burn. I'm going to have to shield it. CERULEDGE really struggles if it is at an energy disadvantage. And my opponent had energy stored everywhere. I mean, to be fair, these are 2 pretty big Core Breakers for CERULEDGE. But still, I feel like it's a good demonstration of the fact that CERULEDGE, even after I bank the Shadow Ball, I'm still not winning this game because they still have a shield remaining, and unfortunately an Icy Wind is not enough to knock out. So my opponent can just let this through, save the shield, and I have no way of winning this game as they're going to be able to land a Dragon Claw and get a farm down. But as I was saying, I feel like this is a good demonstration of the fact that while CERULEDGE can put in work as a sweeper if it gets like up energy or up shields, in like those even shields or even down shield situations, things get really awkward for it really quickly. Moving into the next match, oh, a tough lead. Leading the Poliwrath into the Pidgeot. I'm going to save switch into the Shadow Gliscor. Opponent is going to respond with a Zygarde complete. Zygarde, very bulky, but in the Ultra League, not nearly as bulky compared to the Master League. I will say, you know what? It's still bulky by Ultra League standards, but I'm used to going up against it in the Master League where you need like 4 neutral moves to KO it. So it is a bit refreshing to see that I can actually knock out the Zygarde. I fire off the Earthquake, opponent commits the shield, and I will get farmed down. I'm now going to send in the Poliwrath and just go for an incredibly aggressive farm down. I want energy to be able to threaten the Pidgeot. I have successfully gotten the shield advantage that CERULEDGE is probably going to need, and I'm able to get the farm down. That's quite nice. Are they going to send in the Pidgeot, or will we see the third? They're thinking about it. In comes the Pidgeot, and I'm firing off the Icy Wind. The Icy Wind, probably going to be no shielded since they are already down a shield. I make it to another Icy Wind, but I lose charge attack priority. I can't really afford to give up my second to last Pokemon, because then they can just apply a Feather Dance debuff, and I would have to do 2 flame charges to get rid of it. So I commit the shield, I land the Icy Wind, I send in the CERULEDGE, and again, we have a battle of Fire Ghost types. And I'm enough ahead on energy that my only lose con is baiting. So I full send the Shadow Ball. They call the bait, which is great win con awareness by my opponent. But unfortunately, CERULEDGE, again, in those up energy situations, can't put in a ton of work. Moving into the final match, we see a bit of an interesting pick. The Poliwrath into the Shadow Alolan Muck. I feel like I haven't seen Shadow Alolan Muck in quite some time. They save switch into Giratina. Thankfully, I'm able to see the Giratina here, right? So I can debuff it with the Icy Wind and then send in the Gliscor. Gliscor will be able to massively overfarm in this matchup as my opponent, their Dragon Claws at -1 are just basically doing no damage whatsoever. A little bit of lag there, but fortunately I do get the wing attacks through that I needed to. They go for another Dragon Claw, and I'm going to go for the Night Slash. Night Slash does not knock out here, but it does potentially set me up for a very big farm down. Arguably, in hindsight, maybe I should have just thrown my energy, but I thought, you know what? I'm valuing energy over health in this moment, so I'm very low, but I leave with a massive amount of energy. Let's see what my opponent has in the back. They have a Poliwrath, and this is really not looking good for CERULEDGE. CERULEDGE doesn't really have anywhere to go against the remaining 2 Pokemon from my opponent. I'm going to pivot back into the Poliwrath, but I'm really not feeling optimistic here. This is looking tough. They go for the Scald. Do they get the debuff? They do not. A little bit of luck goes my way. I'm going to go for the Icy Wind to guarantee a debuff to hopefully allow me to make it to a Scald. I'm farming up. I do make it to the Scald, which is quite nice. I do have a bit of an awkward decision ahead of me. My clock is not up, so if I bring in the Gliscor to try and force them to throw energy, they can potentially snipe with the Muck. So I send in the CERULEDGE. They easily have enough for the Scald, so I will commit the Shield. They bait with the Icy Wind. Back in comes the Shadow Muck. This is a bit awkward. I'm going to bank a ton of energy, send in the Gliscor to reset the debuff, and then fire off the Night Slash. The Night Slash is going to be resisted, but hopefully it'll help put it closer to Flame Charge range. Back in comes the CERULEDGE. CERULEDGE firing off the Flame Charge. Flame Charge will be no-shielded by the Muck. Muck does have enough for a Dark Pulse, so I do need to respect it with a shield, but they go for the Acid Spray anyway. This is going to be close. I have to bank on a +1 Incinerate KOing, but the Poliwrath barely able to hang on. Can the 1 damage from the Shielded Flame Charge KO? No. And I believe they have me here. Is it the Scald? It is. Down goes CERULEDGE, and that's game over. All in all, CERULEDGE has a truly amazing moveset. We've seen Pokemon like Chandelure have success with this exact moveset, but I do think it's in a bit of an awkward middle ground as far as the Fire Ghost types go. You have the bulky Fire Ghost type, which is the Skeledirge. You have the extremely glassy, damage-oriented one in the Shadow Chandelure. And you have CERULEDGE, which kind of lands in a weird middle spot, where realistically, it either would probably prefer more bulk so it can take a hit, or more damage, so it can close out games better. So, while it's not a bad Pokemon by any means, I think it's in a little bit of a difficult situation where there are already some really good Fire Ghost types, and unfortunately, I don't really see it breaking into the meta in a meaningful way, just due to the fact that there's a lot of things already in its niche. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.